Welcome to the PrimeSpan Podcast, where we talk about aging, mental health, and living well in the years that matters the most. Each week, we cut through the noise to focus on what actually helps you feel clearer, steadier, and more in control as you age. If you're navigating the second half of life or thinking ahead, you're in the right place. Let's get into it.
Many people die within years of retiring, not because of age, but because they lose the very thing that keep them alive, which is purpose. Retirement is often sold as the finish line, the reward, that moment you finally get to relax. But the truth is this: when purpose disappears, the body follows. So today we're talking about about why stepping away from meaningful responsibility can be dangerous, and how to build a post-55 life that keeps you sharp, strong, and alive. Welcome back to the PrimeSpan Podcast. Here with me today, my co-founders, Allyson and Kassandra. Hi, ladies.
Hi, Adam. Hi,
Hello.
Cass.
I have a first question about every 55-year-old, 55 plus years old. And this is a huge challenge that we're dealing with. And I think there's so many people that's trying to figure this out. But why do so many people struggle after retirement? What do you guys think?
I think that depending on the person, like I think about myself when I'm there at that age. So much of my identity and what I do day to day is in the work that we do, and when that goes away, have I spent time in my more formative years creating hobbies and other connections outside of work? So I think that's one huge piece or component as to why there's, a declination that happens with people. Is just, depending on what your career was, how much of your identity and your day to day, how much of your purpose was tied into that.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you, Kaz. I think if someone has tied their identity to their work, that's who they are and who they identify as, and what their routine has been. And I think as someone changes their routines, we're pretty routine-driven human beings, and so once that changes, and if someone's not able to establish those, I think that's what can be challenging. That maybe someone can't form those on their own.
I think another reason is other factors that might come into play where you're not choosing to retire, and maybe financially you weren't ready to. Whether it's health conditions or whether the company's kind of pivoting and changing direction and restructuring, you might not be part of that restructuring plan, and maybe you just weren't prepared to retire. So I think that can also cause people to sink into depression or have stress and anxiety. So retirement isn't as maybe exciting, or, again, they weren't maybe ready for it.
That's you bring up a very good point when it comes to the struggles. Anytime that it's not your plan, as human beings, it's human nature for us to struggle. And I've seen so many people that they create a singular identity their whole life. And those people that struggle with retirement are those people that have attached their full identity towards their career alone, because they didn't have any outlet outside that career, outside that job. Like their friendship circle was just in the job or the office or the career. Their full identity, their everything about their life was about that job. And they struggle. After that job, after that career, they struggle completely. But what do you do? What are you gonna do? I mean, how do you avoid this, right? I mean, this is the biggest question. Do you know anybody that successfully retired, that entered that 60 years old and said, I'm stepping away from my career and I'm gonna take a retirement, and is thriving?
There's a couple people. So I have cousins, older cousins, that I think, honestly, I think they retired maybe early to mid 40s. They were just already set up and ready to retire, but they had so many other, their hands were in so many other activities and things that even now they're in their early 60s, mid 60s, and life is still full. They're still very active, and they've been active like their whole life. Like that was already kind of integrated into their family. Um, and then I have another close relative who recently retired last year. But he has already had projects and things that he was working on. So I think you have to have conversations with people if they're not, reflective on what they want to do, especially coming to PrimeSpan. I think that's something that we can help with, like help you figure out what is your purpose beyond, retirement. But I think that the people that I've known in recent years that have retired, they did think about it. They knew how they were going to spend their time. They volunteer. They have, small businesses that they, started up from home.
The idea really of what's going on, the problem with the concept of retirement is the disappearance of purpose, and this is really the biggest problem. Because what happens with people, I'm sure this wasn't something that they intended to do back then. We talk about identity, but their idea is when purpose disappear, what's happening is you have a severe risk of depression, because now you feel like, I don't know what to do, and then you risk your physical movement you're in a inability, you're just not moving a lot because you're just now stuck in a small space of movement. So you're going to have increase of cardiovascular decline. And then, as you know, when you're alone at home, your cognitive decline is going to go up as well. So what happens is earlier mortality when you do that. And so I'm sure when they did the retirement plans, it was probably well intended, but when you think about all of this idea that were well meaning, the backlash of this, probably they didn't even think that that's gonna hit. In the modern world, probably is worse, And when you think about people in the modern world, we talked about this a lot, is because of technology, you're even worse, because now you don't go out to meet people. You just look at the phone. Now you don't go up and down to get the TV remote. It's on your phone. Now you're just, now your body just,
Groceries, everything, you're just
yes,
ordering it. Yeah. And I
yes.
think too, going back, like looking back through time, the older generations were the adult children were keeping them home. They were helping raise the grandchildren. There's still purpose.
They go to church,
Like,
they go
yeah.
volunteer, they volunteered a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and they did a lot of civil work, civil service. They were docents typically. They did a lot more. And nowadays that's not an option. And so really what's going on is you lose the purpose when and that is really the biggest problem of this issue that we're talking about today. The purpose that you lose when you retire, and it's really deadly to a lot of people. It's different when you have a bigger family because probably you have grandkids, you have a lot to take care of. But we all know that in America, the boomers, there's also a huge amount of boomers that have single kids, one kid, two kids, and the kids typically moved away from the parents. And this is a huge difference compared to what it was before, where there's many kids next to you and you have a lot of purpose because you have grandkids and you have great grandkids. Right now it's not the same. And so the fascinating thing is people are dying earlier because of that, those things that I mentioned. The mortality is up or higher because of the risk um of because of the chronic illnesses that develop after you retire. My question for everybody here is, when you think about, because this is probably someone's thinking right now, I'm about to retire. I'm that person who you guys are talking about right now. I don't know what to do. Um, and what would be the best scenario for anybody that will help them um, really lower the risk of losing purpose, seeing all of these risks of a larger decline? What do you all think?
Don't retire.
Don't retire.
What do you think, Allie?
I think, well, hopefully you have some interests. Maybe you like cooking, maybe you have a social group here that maybe you uh, go to church or something. You have to start with what you know. If that's a starting place. I think, if retirement is a new chapter, don't overwhelm yourself. At PrimeSpan, we try to do things in small habit changes. So, just start establishing a routine. Start with what you know, but also I think it's important to stay curious and try new things at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Learn new things. If you've have a goal to travel somewhere, a new country, maybe you could start learning a new language or learning to cook something different. I think, yeah, staying curious, but also try not to overwhelm yourself too.
Trying to think of what I would do. But then I think too, I've seen other people who just kind of have flourished, who maybe are, now they feel like they have time to focus on themselves. So they do become more active, or they go and they take, to your point, Allie, they take those trips, that they've been putting off. And I think too, I mean, there's so many opportunities or options for traveling now where they have specific age groups that are um, travel basically packages that they put together for people who are maybe like in their 50s or 60s, and they all travel together. My
Mm-hmm.
friend was just recently on a cruise ship, and she met this lady who was 66, 67, and she has lined up like 3 or 4 cruises back to back to back for her to go, spend her time, and she meets new people and makes connections. And that's one way that this lady was sharing that she, stays active and social. Like she just books cruises.
Mm-hmm. But you see, that when you're both talking about this, when you think about what you just both mentioned, whether you choose to retire, whether you choose not to retire, it all boils down to purpose. It comes down to purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I think what you're both trying to frame here is, whether you choose not to retire, you're choosing to still have a purpose in life at the age of 65, 75, 80. I have met a caregiver the other day, and she told me, Adam, I'm turning 82. said, you are? You don't look 82. She said, and I'm planning to retire next year. I said, you are? I said, why would you retire? It's bad for you. And she said, because I'm 82. And he said, you shouldn't. And she said, I said, if you retire, you're going to lose your mobility because you're going to stop moving around. The reason why you look good is because you're moving around. Then she had a double take. She had to think about it. She's like, maybe I should stay part-time. And I said, yeah, you should stay part-time because get out of the house, you know? You need to get out of the house. Do something. Purpose.
Yeah.
But if you choose to step away from work, just like what you're saying, Kaz, is you find a purpose to do something. Because I think as humans, our biological fuel is to find meaning in life. It's we're bred to find meaning. And you notice the most the worst punishment for a person in the worst scenario in a prison is losing purpose. And even in prisons, the worst punishment for them is isolation. It's losing purpose in isolating them. And so as humans, because we're driven, our biological fuel is purpose and meaning. And so in retirement, if you find meaning and purpose, it's what you need to do. And so for us, when you think about as an old person, you have to think about it from whatever your age. If you retire at 55, 65, 70, 80, or if you're already retired, if you're thinking about what's my current purpose, because this is what everybody struggles. Actually, when you think about even at the young age, when people are lost in their life, like people act weird or crazy, they don't have purpose. You have to know like who you want to help, how you want to grow, how do you want to connect with people, how do you want to be challenged, what brings you joy and meaning to life. When you know those things, that's purpose and meaning. And when you're old, sometimes you forget those things. You forget these things when you get older. We have common friends. The three of us have a common friend. She's probably the most richest wisdom old person that I know, a mentor person, and she's found meaning and purpose, amazingly. And she's found meaning and purpose after a rich career. And she's like the most active purpose. She's recreated herself after a rich career on a field, and now she doesn't even want to think about that field. I'm teaching happiness, Adam. Wow, that's amazing. But you see, when someone gets that meaning in life, the retirement is not as deadly. I'm just reflecting. I got into a reflection mode as you guys were talking.
Well, it's like you're having a second life, I think. Just like when we were talking, when we early in the conception of PrimeSpan and talking with our our other team members, and how our one of the owners said this is a passion project. I've accomplished this already, so now I can do things that I'm really passionate about. And I feel like you could look at retirement that way, like you've dedicated your life to a certain career, or you've just worked really hard through various jobs, and now you can if you've structured yourself well financially, now you can go and flourish and have a second life. And you can go, I mean, I see so many older adults working at the grocery store, and they're just so happy. And some people are like, wait, why are they still working? Do they have to work? And I'm like, no, they're working because they want to have something to do. They want to interact with people still, you know? So you talking about our common friend, like it's amazing to see how she's, you know, living life 2.0,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
basically.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really purpose when you think about it.
Yeah.
And when you think about people that doesn't have purpose, I'm curious. Let me ask you this for both of you. Think about the time where you were stuck and you were feeling purposeless, and what pulled you out from that time.
I think in a transitional state, this is kind of going back, but transitioning from into college, your whole identity was something else, right? And then stepping into being more of an adult and being on your own and having to kind of, or I went away for college, so I had to kind of recreate the communities I was in and the groups I was with, and so that was a change of my identity and my purpose. I had to find something new, and I think if you put an effort into it, and there's a passion and drive for what you want to do, you'll find the people that you'll thrive being around.
Mhm.
I also kind of think that's how, in a transitional phase of us meeting and founding PrimeSpan together, we have found a new sense of purpose um, with one another to establish PrimeSpan and helping people live better and longer lives.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. Cass, how about you? The time that when you were feeling purposeless, and what pulled you out from it?
Um, I would say there's two times in life where I kind of felt like that, and it's similar to Allie, like the transition from college. When you're in college, like that's your identity. That's what everyone is asking you about. What are
Mhm.
you doing? What are you studying? What are you involved in? So that's like your identity for, 4 years. And if you're not at school, then you're studying or you're working. So all of your time, and maybe you have a small time for like social connection, but really I, dedicated mostly to school, especially like my third year was really just full of school and internships. And I had one Saturday afternoon every week. That was my only downtime, like a Saturday afternoon, evening.
Mhm.
And when I finished college and was just working, I had all this time. I'm like, what am I going to do?
Mhm.
How am I going to fill this time? And that was really hard. And I do feel like that was maybe a little bit of like a working depression stage because I just didn't know, like the work that I was doing was just because it was a job to do. It wasn't tied into my schooling. And I'm grateful for that job though, because I learned so much. And then I would say that, I was able to get out of it. Just I recognized, okay, I need to learn still. I need to do other things. So I did, fill my schedule up with other items. A lot of it was just really kind of reconnecting with friends. But I would say that transitioning from that career to a different career in my mid 20s, really kind of starting all over because I just didn't see myself doing that job for the rest of my life. Like,
Mhm.
what am I doing? Even though financially it was great, it didn't feel rewarding. It didn't feel like I was contributing to society. So jumping into a completely different field and having to start, at entry level was a little difficult, especially financially. But I was happier
Mhm.
that I was enjoying this new career. And it was something that I did like on my own that I was proud of. Like I didn't know anyone. I got this job, there wasn't anyone that helped me get this job,
Mhm.
and that in itself was just more rewarding and worth that pay cut, that initial pay cut, for that time that I, did do that. So, and I, since being in that field, it still has, I continue to find purpose. Like I recognize that maybe every 2 to 3 years, I feel like I get a little stagnant and I have to do something to kind of pivot to redefine what is that purpose. And I think that's important too. Your purpose, your main purpose, the foundation of your purpose, or why you're here, doesn't really change, but that purpose can manifest in different ways in different jobs. It's just really up to you to be consistent with stimulating that part of your life. What about you, Adam?
I'm gonna go have a very deep confession here. Very deep. There was a point in time, I haven't had this in a long time. I was in college, and so I was always active in curricular activities. I grew up in church. My family is our pastors. I was like always in church and structured, all of these things, choir, church, ministries, all these things. And then one night, I had this feeling of, I don't know my purpose. I don't know my meaning. And then I look up in the sky and said, I don't know what I'm gonna do in my life. And then I said, I really don't know what I'm gonna do, but I'm going to just try to help people. And I said, and then I said, I don't know if you're real, but I'm just gonna continue to help people. Because I cannot hear you. Everybody that my friends were like, oh, do you hear God? And I said, I don't know if I hear God, but I'm gonna try to help people as much as possible. And then because my friends were like, do you feel the spirit? And I said, I feel the spirit, but I sometimes I don't hear I don't feel the spirit. This is me, Adam. This is the young Adam. So I don't know if I feel the spirit. I don't know what you're talking about. And I said, and then I said, whatever that is, I don't feel it, but I'm gonna continue to help people, and that's going to be my mission. I don't know how. I don't know how I'm gonna do that, but as much as possible, when I have an opportunity, I'm just gonna help people. And what's fascinating is that's been my motto since then. It's always been like from there on, from college. It's been my motto throughout, and I carry it even now. It's helping, just help people. There's no strings attached. Just give them the help, whatever. And so I think because of that, I haven't had a purpose crisis because of that one night. I still remember it. And then the other thing, similar to you, Kaz, I am one of those people that constantly reinvent myself, like every year, every other year. I constantly just push myself to do something differently every year. And so if it's not push upon me, I push upon myself. It's like, and like this year, I'm gonna be a dad. It's gonna be the most. I'm sure it's gonna be the most interesting change. It's gonna be the most interesting purpose. But it's been. And my wife always tells me this, like you find work all the time, and that's the other thing probably. It's embedded in me. I find work, and that's the meaning. I don't think it's find work. It's finding meaning. And so, yeah, it's been that. It's been very interesting. Every now and then I question that am I still doing this correctly every now and then, but I question it if I'm in the right place. Like, am I still in the right place? I ask myself,
That's the spirit.
yeah, am I still in
What
the right place?
I have a question. What advice would you have for people that um both of you have identified that you evaluate and redefine what your purpose is? What about people that might um not think that way,
Mhm.
or don't say, okay, every couple of years let's reevaluate what we're going to do, or know what's that little itch that you're feeling, that would be the turning point?
Yeah, yeah. That's a very good question. It's a very good question. I think everybody has their own journey. Everybody has their own path in life. Everybody has a fork in a different timing in life. And so I've never looked at timing, looking at different people's timing.
You don't compare.
No, I
Yeah.
used to. I used to. One of my mentor said, Adam, you don't know their timing. You don't know their desire. You don't know what their drive. You have a different drive. Everybody have a different drive. And whatever the drive is, you have to just support them and be happy and and that's it. Now, if it affects you, it's a different story. If it directly affects you, you have to have a conversation with them. But if it's like I was talking about my brother, and but then now he's so happy because he's like a leader in the corporate world, so it's different timing. And then he was a father before me, so our timing was different. Now he's advising me to be a father, and so just life is different.
I think that is something that Adam alluded to, because you're, in terms of like, for us, we're, constantly kind of reevaluating or reflecting. There's periods where we, have done that throughout the years. But I think if that's not innate in you, then you need to find, like what Adam was saying, like a mentor who's going to help check in with you, and help guide you. And maybe they know that about you, that you're not going to inherently come up and ask, okay, this is what I'm struggling with, or I don't know I've been doing this for 2-3 years, like what's my next step. That mentor that you choose is really important, because they need to understand that about you, and they need to be able to prompt you, especially if you're giving them permission, to do that, if that's what you truly want. And I think it's important having people like that in your life, whether it's a mentor, friendship, or family member who you trust, who's going to be unbiased in there and non-judgmental in their guidance that they're giving you. That's really important for people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, you brought up a very good point about your environment that influence you a lot. If you're in an environment where it's driven, um, it's gonna influence you like a lot more. But it is true that if you surround yourself with people that are driven, you will be driven. If you don't surround yourself with people that are not driven, you will also not be driven. And that is a very powerful nurture nature idea, which is very true. Um, so it has something to do with it too. I think Cass is very spot on. And mentorship is also something that the mentee is open for mentorship. Mentee seeks for mentorship. So
But I think too, that's why it's so important for people who are coming to us at PrimeSpan to connect, not only with us and the various coaches that we have, but in the community portal that we have, where other people can discuss and talk about maybe some of these challenges or what they're doing in life. What are you doing in life after retirement? How are you filling your days? Are you volunteering? Are you, have you added more activities? Are you maybe you do find a second, or a part-time job somewhere. But just having a community to go to where people are in that same stage of life that you can connect to is really important. And we appreciate all the people who have joined us and take advantage of what we have to offer.
Mm-hmm. 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 Um, you know, as you're saying this, Cassandra, I just for anybody who might listen to this episode later down the line, um, if you're listening to this, I would like to challenge you if you're losing purpose or something. When you listen to this, try to write down one meaningful reason to wake up tomorrow with a purpose. Something that makes tomorrow matter, something that makes your life matter. With just one. And just like what PrimeSpan is all about, is one meaningful step, one small step. We don't need complication, just one. And sometimes looking at that can help you be inspired. And hopefully that can spark something. It could be your grandkid, or it could be that vacation that you're trying to plan, or it could be your next birthday or the new year that's coming up.
Yes, if you want to find us on the web, you can visit community.primespan.life. If you go there, you can see all of the current offers we have, different membership options for monthly or yearly. And we also have some micro lessons for you to take some bite-sized pieces of PrimeSpan so you can hear what we're all about. We also have our longevity coaching that we are just releasing for people to get a little bit more support beyond just our core membership. We also have our social media that you can stay up to date with our posts on Instagram, Facebook, and on TikTok. And soon we're going to be on YouTube.
Yes. We're all over. LinkedIn, all over. We're all over. PrimeSpan is all over. And download our app. Any last words for our listeners? Any last advice about the topic?
Yes. If you don't know how to find purpose, get a dog. They'll give you purpose. We were just talking about that before our call and how our dogs have given us purpose and new meaning in life. So maybe if a dog is too much, maybe you start with a fish or a plant. That's something small and simple and manageable.
Plants is okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Adam, you had asked what's the one reason to get out of bed? It's going to be having to take my dog outside. That's one of the reasons. I think one thing that kind of came to my mind as a closing thought is a lot of people find purpose in volunteering and giving back to their community. So whether it's a big or a small way, I know that people have a lot of meaning with whatever cause drives you. So
just a reminder for our listeners, you're not done in life. You're still needed, and purpose is the fuel of the second half of life, and you have more power, more wisdom, and more impact ahead of you than behind in this next chapter in life. Until next time, thank you for listening. Bye for now.
Thank you for spending time with us. If today's conversation gave you clarity or steadiness, take that with you. We release new episodes weekly. Follow the PrimeSpan Podcast on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss what's next. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep living well.